recording. Recording is started. Perfect. Again, good day, good evening, good morning from whoever you are joining our weekly Move to Cloud ERP webinar sessions. The last 4 to 5 sessions within the year 2024 are all around the topic of selective data transition. To provide customers with a reliable and proven migration approach in their migration to SAP S/4HANA, SAP has established an expert group of partners, which is called the SAP S/4HANA Selective Data Transition Engagements. This is why you will hear today and also on the other sessions, not only the view of SAP regarding the topic of selective data transition, but you will hear also our external experts who maybe can give you also some kind of very useful external view on the selective data transition topics. During the sessions that we will hear until end of 2024, some content is pre-recorded because, as mentioned, the expert group around the topic of selective data transition does not only exist of SAP, but also exist of external experts. For today's sessions, we have a bit of pre-recorded sessions that I would start to play immediately. As usually, you can ask real live questions on the chat function, as usual on the Q&A chat function. We have all the experts that you see on the video also right now in this call, so they will answer your questions directly. And with that, I would start then sharing my screen, and we will hear a pre-recorded part of it. And after that, we will go into the live Q&A. And again, it's all around the topic of selective data transition. Please, if the voice or if the audio is a bit low, just tune up your audio, and then it should work perfectly. You should all see my screen. If you're not seeing my screen, then just let me know. But as usually you should, and we would start now.
Thank you for joining another session in our series Move to Cloud ERP, a practical guide. For this introductory session here, we talk about the migration from ERP to RISE with SAP using selective data transition. I have with me 4 of our leading experts on selective data transition. Martin Finkbeiner, CTO EMEA for SNP. Burkhard Hergenhan, Head of Transformation in Natuvion. Benjamin Krischer, Member of the Executive Board and Global Head of Landscape Transformation in CBS. And Sascha Pfrommer, Global VP Data Management and Landscape Transformation in our own SAP Customer Service and Delivery team. Thank you for being our experts today. Thank you for joining. Let's get into some general stuff. You may wonder how we selected the speakers for this session. Allow me to enlighten you. These members are representing the SAP-initiated Selective Data Transition Engagement Partner Community, a group that was established by SAP focused on the move to SAP S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition with selective data transition engagements, uniting the system landscape transformation experts from the companies CBS, Natuvion, SNP, and SAP. This group is aiming to establish joint standards, methods, processes, co-developed with SAP for a secure, flexible migration to SAP S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition, aiming to ensure high quality, reduced risk, shorter time to value, and cost reduction of your move to SAP S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition through effective standardization. In today's webinar, we will provide insights how to decide whether the selective data transition is the right approach for you and for your move to a Cloud ERP, and how you ensure that those projects are successful. Let's get into the content. What are the common transition methods to get to Cloud ERP?
Thanks, Gerald, and first of all, thanks for having us here in this round, right? And this is actually one of the key questions we get asked a lot, right? What are my options to move to S/4HANA Cloud? And there are basically 3 main options, right, that customers can choose from. One is called a new implementation, sometimes also called greenfield approach. Another one is called system conversion, or sometimes also called brownfield approach. And the one we focus on today, explaining to all of you, is the selective data transition piece. So the first two, new implementation and system conversion, they have their benefits, right? But they also have some shortcomings. Benefits for new implementation could be that you start completely from scratch, right? If you really want to completely redesign your business process, you can do that. System conversion basically takes your whole system landscape up into the S4 release, and you don't have a lot of changes. So that's one option. But there's shortcomings where we as a community also focus on helping customers to move, right? And these benefits, maybe I hand over to Martin to explain, right, what are some of these benefits.
Hey, thanks, Sascha, and also welcome from my side. Yeah, that selective data transition methodology, software, etc., that goes far beyond a standard new implementation as well as system conversion. And it allows us to freely select on what data do you want to take over in your target system. That's the one thing. The other thing, the methodology and the way we do it also allows you to just take those invests you did a long time ago already, which are still good. So you can freely select also on the configuration and the custom adoptions. Of course, they need to be prepared and transformed into S4 compatibility, no doubt. But you really can select those things have been good and still are good, still needed to be moved on. And we don't have restrictions in sense of how the S4 system later on is operated. That means we really can do it on whatever methodology, but of course best would be into a move to RISE in that discussion, and that's at the end the key thing, right? Burkhard.
Yes, thank you, Martin. As you already mentioned, selective data transition combines a lot of advantages, and with the selective data transition approach, you are capable to mix different benefits of all the other two options. Yes, for example, you can consolidate multiple SAP systems into one S/4HANA system, or you can segregate certain organizational units, like for example company codes, in the transformation move. And additionally, you can perform data quality measures, for example, or to increase data on its value, for example, in case of data cleansing, or harmonize master data structures on the fly.
Thank you very much. Now that we know the three transition paths, Benjamin, maybe you can give us an example of why it's so great to use selective data transition?
Yes, for sure. And I think we have a couple of within the next minutes. And after we had some theoretical introduction into the SDT approach, let's try to make it tangible and to bring it to a customer point. And one pretty big advantage of doing selective data transition projects is in the end speed. So when we go forward with an SDT approach, we are usually much faster than when we are heading for a new implementation. And as promised, one customer example, one of our customers having two ECC systems, and they wanted to combine those two in one single SAP S/4HANA cloud environment and to move those systems over. So how did they start in the end? They started with a greenfield approach, really designed processes from scratch, and they moved over the first entity from one system into the cloud environment. So this one single entity took them 18 months until project start to go live. They did some remodeling, massive finance harmonization, new chart of account, global controlling area. They implemented new GL with many additional functionalities. And after they went live with the first entity, and that went pretty good, they thought about, hey, how are we going to bring the other entities into our cloud system? And they drafted a plan, and they ended up with a 5+ year project in a rollout mode, moving things over and over. And for sure they saw, hey, this will be quite complicated, because when we divide all these entities from one system to the other system, we need some interim solutions, we need interfaces to bring the data together for the period until all entities are on SAP S/4HANA. And then they approached us and asked us, hey, CBS, how can we do this faster? And our proposal was, hey, let's do a selective data transition project, and let's do the move of all remaining entities in one single big bang. in the end, what happened? We started this project and we went live with a big bang, all other entities 10 months later. So we reduced the time from a 5-year project to only 10 months, including all the harmonizations that I already mentioned for the first go live, so really finance harmonization. Why was this possible? One of the main things that we see enabling frictionless go live is really taking care for historical data, moving stuff over and enabling customers to work in this new S/4HANA system in the same way with the same data in an exact the same state as they ended up working in ECC. So it's more or less like just hitting a button, moving to the next system and working the way we are used to. So that's one dimension. It's about speed, and Martin has some others.
Hey, Benjamin, thanks a lot. Yeah, and just adding to what Benjamin said, there's a big thing we can really achieve by using a selective data transition methodology and the way we do it. We can combine several things. I'd like really to elaborate and combining the several things in sense of bringing UGL into place, bringing those customers into the new customer vendor integration mode, harmonizing, etc. Benjamin, you all mentioned those in that customer project example as well. That, of course, is a significant speed reduction, but it's not the only point because it also reduces a lot of efforts in sense of consulting efforts. So we are far more efficient, costly in that sense. And the other point is there's a lot of risk in such a sequencing of projects. Like you have to reiterate testing, etc., etc. And therefore, it also reduces significantly the risk of failure, putting it all together into one approach, right? And then there is a thing which is very often underestimated, but that's in my experience one of the key tops. It's like the people, right? You need to have business involved, and if you imagine yourself need to involve business people testing those things in a sequence 3, 4, 5, 6 times for the if you have to sequence the projects, rather if you put it into one. Yes, of course, it's a hard piece of testing into that one. It's a big effort, but you have those people motivated to do it once with a high level of energy correctly. So not losing the people in that sense. That is a very important part, which I think is key. You do have some more exciting information for us.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Martin and Benjamin, for the 2 use cases. I'd like also to add one of our project history, let's say. So we had competition by one of the largest German automobile manufacturers. We had the challenge to transform a 3 terabyte SAP ECC system into a central greenfield implemented S/4HANA system, a little bit the same as you had in your example. And the old system had completely reached its capacity limits, and there was no room for further innovations, and also time was a very critical factor in this project, because as you could imagine, an automobile factory, everything has to be in time here. So we had to transform, or 7 sales organizations were impacted in this case, and we've chosen a multi-wave migration approach. So we did one template for the German unit, let's say, and we had a rollout plan for the 6 other units. And the key factor was to migrate all the historical data where necessary to the new system, and to avoid, as I already said, significant business interruption. So the entire project was done very fast, within 1.5 years. And within this wave-based approach, we had 3 waves here for all the 7 country units, and in a very fast time. It's in 1.5 years. So I think this faces also, or this explains also the big advantages of the selective data transition approach. And Sascha, you have also one example for us.
Sure, let's make it tangible, right?
Yeah.
Once again, and I think we heard a lot of reasoning already on the question you asked, right? Why I should decide on a selective data transition approach. And I think one of the I would say, very typical examples of, I think we all deal with on a daily basis, are customers who have been with SAP for quite some time, right? They're on an ECC, they're really targeting to move to a cloud business model, so SaaS business model, including the business transformation need they have, but they come from a large system, right? Completely customized, a lot of data, right? 20 plus years of data. And then they basically pick and choose the data they need, right? If you have a production company, right? For example, right, they usually want only the last 3-5 years of data in the cloud environment. So they want to reduce the data footprint overall, but at the same time, they need to consider, of course, the strategy of clean core, right? What does it mean to become a cloud company in the end, also from our customer base? And I mean, reduction of data is a one key component all the time, right? In some cases, 70-80% of data reduction. And the coupling with, okay, I only want a time slice, right, in general, but coupling it with the business transformation need every single customer has, that has been with SAP for some time, to move to cloud, right? And this coupling, I think, makes the true benefits of a customer moving via selective data transition, right? It's a migration topic on one side, but this combination of business needs to be included in that migration or transition, I think that's a typical scenario I think all of us see on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, we've heard some really powerful stories. Burkhard, is there a structured process how I can decide whether selective data transition is really the right thing for me? How would you recommend to go forward here?
Yes, of course. So in our community, we prepared a kind of a decision matrix or a decision table for you, for the customers, let's say, which are facing the challenge to move to S/4HANA. So there are many criteria you have to consider, and if we would go through all of it, you may see it on this slide, then it would really, I think, go over the time here. So I will select some which we think are perhaps the most important ones. So for instance, we have the future readiness. So checking the future readiness means to check whether the existing system already meets the conditions to the company's future. So does the system fit to the company's strategy, to the company's future, to the further business? So that's really important to check how the old system fits to the future, to the future business. Another criteria is, for example, data quality, as you can see it in the table here. So how good is the data quality? Is it advantageous to take the data with its quality to the new system, or you have really big failures or missing data or things like that, or open items of old data, let's say, where it's not advantageous to bring it to the new system. Another example is, for example, if you have a long data history or large data volume, which you don't need on your new systems, then it makes really sense to cut it off and don't bring it on the new system. So this has to be investigated as well in a kind of a conception phase. So, and also many old ECC systems are heavily customized, and then there's the question, okay, this old customizing, this old coding, does it really work on the new S/4HANA system, or do you really need it, yes? Or do you want to reorganize your new system? And then you have to check, okay, what about the custom code? Yeah, do I need it on the new system? Can I bring it to the new system, or would it be better to have a reorganization here? So, and as we, I think, mentioned several times, one big advantage or one thing to consider is the transformation speed as one of the important criteria. And there, I think we already mentioned all the advantages the selective data approach can bring into the game of your transformation project. So Martin,
well, I'd
would you like something to add here?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to elaborate a bit more on that historical data thing. So in preparation of our session today, I really thought about which kind of customer example I'd need. And then I flipped through several of our reference slides back home and came to the conclusion there is not the single answer with respect to the historical data. There's so many motivations. Like Sascha, you already mentioned, and Benjamin as well, there are customers, they're running with real monster fat systems. Yeah. So having those monster fat systems, which usually have been on premises, right? If you just move them lift and shift into a cloud environment, coming from a legacy database even, put that into a HANA environment on cloud, wow, that's a kind of a cost thing, right? So there is a significant motivation for a 5 years lasting program, for instance, to have the footprint reduced. And that is just to produce more capable, smaller project systems, as easy as that, right? Then you do have the thing, and what we're doing with selective data transmission, as already mentioned quite several times, by separating the data migration from the configuration and the customizing, that snaps in here as well as a big argument for why we are capable with the historical data. Why is that? Because historical data is all-time bound to customization, to custom code adoption. And therefore, very often, if you keep just all that historical data, you keep the dependency to that stuff as well. And we say always, what's not there does not need to be transformed, right? And therefore, by selecting only specific real used data, full set of history, and transform that into the new system, that's a big motivation tool, right? And then last not least, if you decide about the way you get rid of data, if you take like legal requirements, if you do a carve out, you don't want to carve the complete set of data out to the buying company, right? For instance. Therefore, there are so many reasons why it's really a very, very strong capability selecting that historical data. I could not really find just one customer, and I had customers, they had all of those tops in their project, and some of them just coming from a monster fat 60, 80 terabyte machine. It would not just have been even possible in a time window to do the job, right? Therefore, that was the big thing. And Sascha, you have some more.
Yeah, I think we all have passion for these, to answer this question, Gerald, right? Which criteria, right? And they're multifold. We heard a lot of reasoning already. And I think also what we feel from, I would say at least the last 12, 14, 24 months even, is the customers ask on how can I move to a cloud environment in a faster way? So, right. Yeah. So the transition speed is replicated and means from a customer point of view, if I have a faster way to transition, I have faster access to innovations,
yep,
you know, that we can provide in a cloud model. So this transition speed, coupled with all the things we heard already, right, becomes, I think, a very good criteria to decide how, you know, how fast can I move on to a cloud environment, right? Also looking at the overview, right? It's fast time to value with selective innovations, right? So it depends on, if you look at the cloud target release, what functionalities do you want to access as a customer, right? Which are accessible through the RISE cloud environments, and then look at where you come from, right, as a source. So we had a lot of ECC,
absolutely,
we had big data, you know, large data volumes, but don't forget there are certain prerequisites as well, right, from an SAP environment on ECC to move to S4, which need to be fulfilled. And some of these prerequisites, I think, Martin, you mentioned them already, right? This account to ledger, you need to change your accounting model, you need to look at your customer vendor integration, how to, you know, basically treat your customers and vendors in the future on S4 is different than on ECC. So there are certain prerequisites you need to fulfill to move. And this prerequisite can be included in the selective data transition approach itself, right? And that has a key benefit that you can avoid any type of pre-projects, which could last up to 12 months or sometimes even longer,
yep,
right? That you need to do upfront before you even start your journey to S4. And that can be included in the SDT transition itself. And I think this is looking at the speed, right? That's one of the key factors we see, I think all of us see in our customer-based discussion, that is becoming crucial, right? Because the longer you're away from the innovation access from a customer point of view, the longer you don't get the benefits of those, right? So that's definitely one key. And I think Benjamin also has, Yeah, I think similar discussion.
But
I hand over
definitely,
to you,
yeah.
yeah.
So we have one more thing to tell, and let's move back to the top of the table, future readiness. And think about, we're talking about selective data transition. And all of us, we are data guys. If the approach is named data transition, for sure what we can do is we can adopt all the organizational processes to the new target picture. And what we see, especially when we look into our customer base, there are many ERP customers out there not having touched their SAP systems over a decade or whatever. They did not invest, they did not modernize the systems. So we have systems with outdated processes, and we have lots of custom coding that is capable of being processed by SAP standard functionality that is now available. So things change, but customer did not take that journey. And if we think about moving from ECC to S/4HANA, it's one perfect step to think about, where do I want to be tomorrow? What are my future processes? How should my target picture, my operating model look like? And how can I implement this into my S/4HANA system? And if we go with a selective data transition approach, we have the perfect chance to remodel all that stuff that needs to be remodeled. We can throw away all that stuff that is not needed anymore. And all the good things that are already in your system, that are up and running and that don't need to be changed, we just take them over. And all this is valid for data, processes, and SAP coding.
Yes.
And really doing this, I started talking about speed. That's coming back into the game here. If you want to move from an outdated operating model to a state-of-the-art thing, for sure we can enable that to be quite fast. And just to give you an idea about what we see in the majority of our projects, how does the move from old processes to new processes look like, and what is possible when you go forward with a selective data transition approach. One of our customers, more than 100 company codes running on that system, 99% of their complete group revenue really being in one single SAP instance. They completely changed their controlling and finance setup. So in the new state, nothing was the same as it was before. So we moved from classic GL to new GL with a ledger solution. We implemented a completely new global controlling setup, one global controlling area, completely restructured profit center stuff. We moved for sure to a global chart of account. We switched on new functionality like additional material ledger stuff. We moved to account-based margin analysis and all that thing in one single project. And not only with the processes, also with a dedicated set of data that we transformed into those new target structure. It was not only about the data behind, it was also about the processes and the coding. And what we do, we changed all the data that we took over into the new structures to allow our customer really to have some historical insight into the data, and for much more benefit, really to have the chance to work from day one with full speed, with full flexibility, with all the data that they need in their new S4 system without the need to do something in an archive system or in a separate up and running system. So quite frictionless and cool, and yeah, that's one of the great things that we can do using SDT. Back to Gerald.
Thank you very much. Knowing how customers now decided to go for a selective data transition, having all the great examples with very powerful arguments, once we decide to go, what is the way to ensure success of such a selective data transition project? What are some of the things we need to look at, Martin?
Well, that's a very good question, Gerald. Thanks for having that one. So we learned a lot now, the last few minutes, what we are capable of. Now, what my experience really, and I guess that's also your guys' experience, is prepare as good as you can. Clarify from the beginning what's needed to be transformed, what's really needed in the future, so fit to future, etc. That's the one thing. And one of my key learnings, definitely involve business. Because what needs to be very clear, all of our selective data transition projects, they are just part of a bigger program. They are all completely embedded in typically the digital transformation of our customers, right? It's a bigger program. So with no doubt, we do love the capabilities. As you said, Benjamin, we are data guys. So the data migration, it's with no doubt super important, but it's only a part of it. Okay, that's the one learning. It's like a second thing, what I really took out of a lot of projects I've been involved, even being myself an enterprise architect in those discussions. I do selectively join some customer engagements myself, so I really like that. And so the big picture, which needs to be focused, is a super important key thing, Gerald, in that thing. So having the focus on the enterprise architecture, the end-to-end process management, so like having a clear picture of your target processes to be implemented. And then a thing I could not elaborate often enough to is definitely the end-to-end testing, with no doubt. So the future target operating model, that's a key thing which drives me. So and that's all embedded, if you want to say so, in the life cycle management of the future, right? And I think, Sascha, you can add to that one as well from the SAP perspective.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, that's, I would say, almost the most important question to answer, right? How to ensure success, because if we're not successful, right, then again, customers cannot access, you know, the innovations, the clean core,
Yep.
right, speed that is needed in the future or already today on a cloud model. And I think, don't mistake, I think all of us want to drive down the risk, right, first of all, and increase the standardization, right? This is the most important thing for us, and don't take SDT as a standalone. It's fully embedded into the guidance that SAP is giving through, for example, the RISE methodology, right? The framework that is available there, also with the recommended approach that SAP is giving on, you know, the tool chain approach, the framework, what to consider in an end-to-end engagement, right? As Martin said, we always embed it into something, right? And use that standardization that SAP is offering also for the SDT approach. And this will ensure that we have the lowest risk possible with the highest standardization in terms of execution itself, right? I think that's one of the keys. So it's not, this is not a standalone, right? It's embedded into, you know, SAP's guidance on lowering the risk, use standardization, use the methodology that, you know, is proven and you know, delivered hundreds of times, right, already. So do consider the framework, and this is a very important part of the equation, right? So we're here to highlight SDT, the benefits, but take it as part of an embedded guidance from SAP overall. And I think, Benjamin, right?
Yeah, okay.
Please,
Thank you, Sascha. Clean core, that's one of the main topics that you should think about, that you hear when you talk to all those SAP people. They're always talking about clean core. And for sure, our customers need to think of, hey, how can we achieve this in the end? So main question of a clean core strategy is, what do I have to take over and what can I leave behind? Yeah, and that's also one big benefit out of the selective data transition approach. And we touched it a little bit, and let me try to pinpoint this down in 3 dimensions. So from a content-related point of view, looking into data, selective data transition is the perfect chance to decide which data do you need, what needs to be taken over, what needs to be kept, what needs to be renewed, remodeled, restructured, whatever. So you can do nearly everything that you think of when we really transfer the data from the old system to the new system from a structure point of view. So we're quite flexible in helping you there to achieve what you want to have. And secondly, for processes, I already started talking about that one. You can freely adopt your customization. You can keep what you have if it's working good. There's no need to start with a greenfield thing and to do everything new from scratch. Really keep what you have. Move away all the stuff that you do not need anymore. And thirdly, those parts that need to be adopted, just adopt them. Because as we said, we are decoupling data and processes, and we are capable of really defining the customization that you want to have in the end. That's much faster, that's much easier as when you start from the scratch. And this really helps us to bring your processes to a new level. Yeah, and finally, when it's about clean core, it's mostly about, or in main thinking of most people, it's about custom-specific coding. So what we typically see when we move over customers from ECC to S4, we find many customer-specific solutions that have been implemented over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Much of those are not in use anymore, so just throw it away. Another part is being used still, but we now have SAP standard functionality to use it, so it can also be thrown away. And then there will be some coding that's still used, that's still needed, where there is no SAP standard functionality. And for sure, for this stuff, we can think about moving it over, just in an old ABAP style, or even think about moving this out of the core into a BTP or whatever solution, and really to make your core clean. So all this stuff can be achieved using a selective data transition approach. And finally, Burkhard has some more things to tell.
Yes, thank you, Benjamin, and Martin, Sascha as well. So I'd like to round this up a little bit at the end now. So, so what I wanted to say at the end is, it's all about people. Yes, we talk about really a lot about technique and a lot about data and how to adopt custom code and so on and so forth. But behind all these things, there are people, yes, who are working with these systems and who are embedded in an organizational structure. So, and when we talk about a transformation project, then it's more than moving data or changing code or something else. So it's a change in how to work, how to use processes, how to use data, and this makes something with the people. So it changes, yes. And so my advice here is that don't forget the people and accompany these kind of projects with a professional change management. And this begins in the conception phase, for example, where the definitions are done. So such projects are mainly business driven. So you need the people out of the business to determine what you need in the future, how the system should look like, how the processes should look like, yes. And this goes on, for example, with professional testing and accompanying the testing phases in the test cycles. And also information events could be an appropriate measure to bring professional change management in here, and also, of course, education and training at the end. Yes, that the people are educated to use the new technology. So that's what I wanted to add here, besides all the technical things we were talking about in the last minute. So, Gerald.
Thank you very much, Burkhard. Thanks a lot, Sascha. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Martin. We have covered a lot of ground. Let's summarize a little bit with some of the key takeaways before we go into the Q&A. We learned that selective data transition can be a key enabler for a move, a transition, a business transformation of a company. We also found out that, of course, it is a critical path that helps you safeguard your success, and there are measures you can take in order to reach clean core and become really a company in the cloud. And the last point here is all of those projects that we do with selective data transition really require involvement of IT and business to make it a joint effort and ensure success of such a project as well. So thank you very much for sharing those insights with us. Let's open it up for questions now and see what was there from the audience in the chat, and as well, of course, from the live audience. Please let.
Okay, that was the pre-recorded video that we had from SAP and all of our experts explaining basically the basic concept of selective data transition. I saw that we had already some questions in the Q&A section that were already answered. now is the time if someone wants to speak up and ask direct questions to our SAP and also to our external experts. That would be now your moment.
Maybe we can start with the first one that's still unanswered and take that one live. Benjamin, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure, I can take that. So question was, coming from a technical point of view, can tools change historical data already in the database? And as an example, it was mentioned having organizational structures like company codes or stuff like that. And definitely yes. So this is the main benefit, or one of the main benefits for one selective data transition approach, that we are really capable of changing data structures from today's perspective to a completely new setup, like merging company codes, renaming them, changing chart of account setup, so changing GL accounts and all that directly in the database is a pretty high speed, and this allows us to do this not only for a small portion of data, but furthermore for maybe the complete history or several years of history that can be tackled with that.
Great. Thank you, Benjamin. This one additional, there was one question around, there's a new question. It's answered, good. Thank you. There was one question on utilities. I think, Burkhard, you already picked up on it a little bit, the question of the high volume of usage data, especially for utilities. Would you elaborate a little bit on that one?
Yes, of course. As I already wrote in the chat, yes, as you can see, there's many practical experience from our side in the utilities industry, especially on the special requirements regarding the Marco Cloud. I think this is a little bit special when it comes to transformation to S for utilities. We created a special, let's say, migration or content template for migrate all these big amounts of historical transactional data, which is quite usual in the utilities industry, as you already wrote, on the billing side or on the Marco side as well. So and yes, there's many practical experience at the moment. We have about 15 to 20 projects running, especially here in Germany, in Europe, or also in the US. And yes, the big challenge, as already mentioned in the question, is even the big amount of data, but it can be handled with a very high performance transformation tool, yes, like we have in place here. So definitely, yes, there's experience, and we already solved all the challenges you face in the utilities industry.
Thank you, Burkhard, for elaborating. There's a fresh question in line here. Sascha, would you like to take that one on migrating configuration to new HANA? You're on mute.
Mm.
Should work now. No.
Then maybe I take that on Sascha's behalf.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So the question reads basically, when migrating, can we change ECC configuration to new S/4HANA, but can the data fit to these new HANA settings? Absolutely. It's just like what Benjamin already voiced out in regards to the organizational changes. You can basically do process reader standardizations. You can basically fit back to standard, all those things, which then would require, of course, for the data to be adjusted. And that's just as possible as doing that with the organizational units, for instance, or other changes in the system. We can do this on the fly, basically even to historic data, due to the fact that we are able to migrate on the table-based level, basically, where we have like high speeds available and all flexibility available. So yes, that's absolutely doable, and a regular case that we see out there in the industry, actually.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot, Dominic. Any other questions?
Okay, if someone wants to unmute themselves, then please raise your hand. No. All right. I guess that there are no open questions anymore. All have been answered so far, which is very good. As mentioned, today we kick off our first session within Selective Data Transition webinar sessions that we will pursue until end of this year. We will continue with our own SAP experts and also our external experts next week, Tuesday, where we learn more about the project execution. So how do I really execute a selective data transition project? Again, there we will have SAP and also external experts for you joining that session, which also includes some pre-recorded content. So we ensure that we provide to you the highest quality possible. With that, and I see there are no questions anymore. I want to thank all participants for joining this session. As usual, we will have the recording on our Move to ERP webinar YouTube playlist, and you will receive also the slide that you saw on the video recording after this session. A big thank you also to our experts joining today, and really looking forward to see you all next week where we talk about the project execution. Stay tuned. We have really exciting content for you prepared. With that, wish you all a very nice Thursday and see you all next Tuesday. Take care of yourself and
thank you very much.
And have a nice rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.